Hello and welcome back to another episode. I'm really excited for today's one because I predominantly work in the SME sector, as you know, and it's a sector that has a lot of ups and downs, as we know. There's been a lot of changes happening through COVID, coming out of COVID, with customers, with staff retention, and lots of different things. And I have Margaret Bourke here from Positive Retail Solutions, and she's going to give us a little bit of insight into what she does, what her role is in the company, and typically what they're seeing at the moment in her business. So nice to have you on, Margaret. Tell us
Thank
a little
you.
bit about yourself.
All right. First of all, Louise, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Like you, I'm really looking forward to this. I suppose I started in retail back in 2006, and I was literally installing physical machines and software systems for small businesses at the very start. So over the years, I've progressed on, I've done some courses. Gosh, I've a lot of experience, and now I work with everything from a single store right through to 140 store implementations. So loads of experience at this stage.
Amazing. And kind of from when you started off, Margaret, obviously it's a very different format now. Technology is kind of, it's fast forward, it's gone more kind of complex. What are the changes you've seen, I suppose, with the people that you're dealing with?
It's actually very different depending on the retailer. So if you are looking at a bigger retailer who's growing rapidly, they tend to struggle with multiple systems that are not integrated and connected together. And this gives them a problem when they want to look at their data and their information. So, and really everything comes back to data and information now. So it does, you have to be able to see what's happening in the business with clarity. For the small to medium retailers, their workload has got bigger. They've moved to an omni-channel environment. They have social platforms now that they're expected to advertise on. And a lot of the small to medium businesses are actually business owners, and they're doing a huge amount of work in the business. Like, I went into retailers where you have the business owner setting up the items one by one in a system that they have, which is vastly time consuming. They're doing the purchase orders. They're jumping onto a POS system to complete a sale. A customer wants to talk to them. But now, as well as that, they're expected to manage all this online orders coming into the system, as well as the social media platforms. And one thing with the smaller business owners is I can see they struggle to relinquish control, and they're so involved in the business. And my heart does go out to them, because I'm like, you need to take a step back here, and we need to understand how we can improve this, because you'll see it impacting on family life as well, and their work-life balance. There's a lot, but I think with COVID, it's pushed retailers even harder than before. And now they really, really do need to look at the business and understand what's happening and how they can improve it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, Margaret, because I know there was a lot of great funding given out, a lot of grants given to support retailers with the online. And there was a recent article just posted, I think in the last week, where there's more funding gone in now into online for retailers. I don't know if you came across that.
I did, yeah, I seen
Yeah.
that. I seen the post only yesterday, actually.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So I suppose from your perspective, we have the funding there for the SME, for those retailers. There's more funding being added. But what we're seeing on the flip side is I suppose, even with the funding, is it the case that some of the retailers are just struggling to implement that change in the business a little bit? Is it the delegation? Is it that side of things, or is it the tech side of things? Where do you see the skills gap, I suppose, there for them?
Like, I have customers for years and years that would ring me and have a chat about how things are going and what's happening, and if they're struggling with a different area, and we could just have a chat. But I've had a lot of these calls, particularly this year, in the last 4 months, where business owners are like, what is happening? What do we need to do here? We feel like we're falling behind. What I think, first of all, is that retailers spend so long having no support and nowhere to go for advice. It was like, you're a small business, get on with it. And there wasn't anything there. So I think there's almost this mentality still for these business owners that, oh, I just have to make this work. It's all on me. This is my business and I'm the only one that's going to make it work. And I think they don't realize that there's so much support there, Louise. Like, to be honest, even when I spoke to you a few weeks ago, you were telling me what you could do and how you can help business owners from a mentoring perspective, but also the funding that's available for business owners to actually reach out to you, and it doesn't cost them that much. So I think one of the things retailers need to do is help themselves first, to reach out, have a look and see what the ISME is offering, what the local enterprise board is offering, what Retail Excellence is offering, what Guaranteed Irish is offering, and get involved with these organisations, because that's how you start understanding the business, where you can go to get additional support. And I suppose one thing that I keep saying to my customers is, you're not alone. You're not expected to have all the answers. There's this whole digital transformation happening now, and all these omni-channel, all these words, right? That people are like, or retailers are like, oh, I don't know what that is. I don't, and they're nearly frightened of it, right? But there's nothing to be worried about. They're only words. And when we understand them, then we can do more in our business to enhance it.
Yeah. And I totally understand that sentiment, where you're coming from, Margaret, because a lot of the businesses I've been speaking to in the last couple of weeks, and some of them were in the UK, and they're going through quite I would say, a real tougher time than we are here in Ireland at the moment with Brexit and everything. They're feeling a little bit isolated over there. And just to give a bit of context around that, and it goes back to what you said there. I think with a lot that's going on in social media, similar to COVID, people are worried. They're hearing a lot of negativity in the press and the media around, rates. And I know everything is increasing, but it's, again, go back to what you said there. Look at the resources we have, go back and see where is the opportunities in it. Where can we grow? And there is money out there. There was a recent study done in the banking, and there's a lot of money there. People have saved their money. There's a lot of money to be spent, and it was a big number. I think it was something like, it was either
25,000, yeah, up to 25,000 is what I read, available to retailers now for support in their business. Because this kept coming up for me, particularly this year. I was talking to Brenda about it, one of the girls in here, and she was like, well, we can tell our customers about it, but how about we go one step further and we start talking about the business supports that are available? And I said, that's such a great idea, because there's supports there in relation to your electricity bill. There's different ways to go and get help and funding in relation to that. There is, like, even a big thing at the minute is staff, and getting really good staff on board and retaining those staff. But there's a retail supervisor apprenticeship that's available, and the person can continue to work full time. They do need a certain number of days off, but they're learning things like digital transformation, about social platforms, how to advertise on them. They're learning so much in that course, and that's free. Actually, the business owners, the retailers are getting, I think, €4,000 to encourage them to bring people on board, or even the business owner, if they want to do it, they can do it. And there is just so much there that I think retailers don't know about.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic program, Margaret. It's a really good program, and it's all work-based learning. So, like you said there, all of the assessments, all of the projects, they're done based on the job they're in. So what better way to get your team to grow your business by investing in something like that, it's absolutely fantastic. It's a really, really good way. Majority of people that reach out to you, is there a common theme that you see, Margaret? So, you've seen anything come up in the last, say, 6 months or few months, or different projects you're doing, or 12 months? What are people looking for when they come to you?
There's a common theme that I see, but it's nothing new, to be honest. I've already mentioned retailers getting overwhelmed about what they need to do in relation to online. But what I find is a lot of retailers are not technical people, so they don't understand software systems. And the market's flooded now. You have online retail systems, you have hybrid solutions, you have on-premise solutions, and it's very overwhelming because they want to promote the business and they want to leverage off technology to enhance it and improve it, but they don't know what direction to go in, or what's going to fit my business, or what the best solution is. Like if you have poor broadband, but you're looking at a cloud solution, you're going to be in difficulty straight away as well. So it's to understand in really what your requirements are, what the offerings are that's there. And this has actually come up so much, particularly in the last year, Louise, because we had 2 retailers come to us last year that invested in a system that didn't actually work for their business. Now they invested a lot of money. This for me is a very upsetting thing to hear, because I know how hard small to medium businesses work to earn that money, and then they invest this chunk of money in a software system that doesn't work for them. So I suppose what I'm coming back to is the retailer needs to understand the offerings that are there. And this was another thing I was discussing with Brenda in here. And because of it, we decided to set up a webinar the 24th of April this year. And it's actually open to everybody. And it's a very much an independent one. We're not pushing our own software or anything, but it's for retailers who want to understand what the offerings are that's there. So I'm not talking about any particular systems, but it's just to give them a very quick understanding of what's available. Would this suit my business? Would it not suit my business? And we can already see a lot of traction on it. There's a lot of people signing up for it that we've never met before. So there's definitely a need there for that. And my view on life is it's not all take all the time. So if we have the experience here to help somebody, you know what, maybe a year down the line, or maybe in a couple of years' time, they'll see an opportunity where, right, they can help us. It's not always about taking, and it is heartbreaking to see any vendors taking advantage of, especially small to medium retailers who are in desperate need of a system to organize their business. So basically, retailers are not technical is the common theme, and it's not to expect the retailer to be technical. So you talk to them in such a way that they can understand what is going to be the best option for them.
And how, so if if a retailer is listening to this talk, Margaret, and they're thinking, I'm not happy with my EPOS system at the moment, it's very time consuming, they mightn't be maybe doing their stock takes accurately, they mightn't have all their SKUs uploaded onto the system, they might be having real challenges in the business to see what stock they have on hand. What tips would you give them? If I am that type of retailer and I'm going out, I'm looking to speak to people like you and other ones, what kind of clarity do I need before I have those conversations, or what questions do I need to be asking?
Okay, so if this was me and this was my retail business, the first thing I do is have a look at the store and see what's happening in the store. So if something like ordering is taking a lot of time, I'd mark that down. Well, our purchase orders are taking a lot of time, or we're not doing purchase orders, and then deliveries are coming in and there's no way of checking what was ordered from a rep who walked in the door, and what actually comes in, and what comes in on an invoice at the end of the day when that invoice arrives. you really have to understand the pain points in the business, in my opinion.
Yes.
And whatever system you get in should be alleviating those pain points. So as a business owner, you take a look at the business, you write down the time consumers and pain points that you have, but you also look at your needs. So if you have customers and customer accounts and you need statements run off, you need that in a system. That actually happened one of those retailers last year. They bought an EPOS system that didn't have customer accounts in it and the ability to print off statements. And that's why they actually couldn't function with the system, because they had a lot of B2B customers. So you or the person as a retailer needs to look at the business, figure out what your pain points are and what you need the system to be able to do. So obviously all of the EPOS systems are going to be doing sales, returns, voids. Do I need customer accounts? Do I need statements? Do I need to be able to email statements? Do I need to be able to like, actually we had a customer, Tom Whelan, down in Central Sports, and during COVID he came to me and he was like, geez, Margaret, my head is wrecked. We're spending up to 30 hours on just sorting out online orders, because that's what he was doing. And he said the big problem is when the order comes in, we have to go to our courier and print off the label, and it's very time consuming. I was like, that's no problem, Tom, right? We just sort that out. Let's put an integration in there that allows you to just, when you complete the transaction on your POS system, it'll print off your DPD label or your on-post, exactly the one that you require and your business requires. So look at, you really need to understand what problem you're trying to solve as a retailer and be very clear on that in the expectation and whatever demo you get from any vendor.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Margaret, and I'll recap on a couple of those points we come near the end, but it's really interesting the things you highlighted there, which were time consuming tasks, writing them down on a notebook, whatever that is, before you go into that sales call with yourselves or an EPOS company. Pain points, what are the issues you're coming up against? So again, is it your goods inwards process? Is it your booking in stock? Is it your orders, your POs? Where is that issue occurring where you really want to save time? And I think you said that to me, the whole issue around overwhelm, I think with any business owner is, I don't have enough hours in the day. Give me some time where I can be with my family, where I can have a bit of a work-life balance, where I don't feel I'm living in the business. And I think when we look at any time saving things, and I think you touched on them there, having a system that supports you and giving you time. And I think that was a great one that you gave there, the example around the having the labels printed for getting your orders going out, your deliveries. It could be a courier service or DPD or whatever, one of those businesses that deliver the goods for you, because I know a lot of stores now do click and collects, and they might do also shipping from their stores. So it's obviously part of that whole omni-channel piece that we can deliver to the customer. But again, something like integrating the labels to be printed, that saves a lot of time, Margaret. And I don't think people realize those little things. It saves you going all the way up. You could have 2 or 3 flights of stairs, getting a little book, going all the way back down the stairs, scanning it through the till prints another one. You have to put it into a book to have a copy of it on site if you get audited. There's a lot of things there that you're literally adding about 10 different things onto something as easy as what you've done there with that particular business owner, where you integrated that so it could print out for that particular person on the till, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, well, we made a decision as well. When we decide what software we're going to work with, we develop a relationship with that software vendor, and we're very, very involved with all of our vendors, whether it's LS Retail or whether it's Retail Management Hero. And we have direct talks once a month with the product director on what we see as an issue, how the product needs to be enhanced. And they're fantastic, because I did work with software before, and I was explaining this to the vendor. You need to move to handheld devices, you need to do certain things. And they just turned around and they said, that's your problem, Margaret. And you know what? If somebody had physically slapped me in the face, it wouldn't have felt as bad as that felt. And I said, never, ever again am I going to go through that. Anyone that I deal with, I will be able to pick up the phone and speak to. And I would actually pass that on as well to retailers. You need to be able, like, it's all good and well emailing all the time, but you have to be able to communicate and talk to whoever you're going to be dealing with long term. Like, yeah, emails are handy, but sometimes it's so hard. You could spend 10 emails trying to explain something when you can just have a 5-minute call and, oh, everyone's clear on what it is now. Like, I do think you need that kind of environment for it to work really well. But this is just my personal view. Obviously, people can have different opinions.
Yeah, and I like that, Margaret. And I think my background, as you know already, is 15 years in retail. So I've seen when the till system doesn't work and you've a queue at the till and your card machine, you know, and you're there and, you know, you're losing money essentially. And I think what you touched on there is that you're able to actually pick up the phone and ring, which I think is really important. And that's something unique to your business a little bit, in the sense that your whole, and for people that don't know about your business, Margaret, or might be listening in, what makes your business different? What makes it stand out?
Well, if you were to talk to my customers, I actually think it's the team that we have in here.
Yeah.
We have, I think, a very good culture. It's an environment where we encourage everybody to have an opinion. And certainly I love when my opinion is challenged. I think that's great. And that happens because I wouldn't always have the right answer or the best answer. Like, we had a software migration happening from one program to another. And I had an idea of how I would see this working. And one of the technicians, Mark, was like, well, why don't we do it this way? And I was like, yeah, why don't we do it this way? That's so right. So we encourage people to have opinions, to be freely able to challenge anyone, but not in a negative way. This is all about improving our processes as well. And that's something that we worked really, really hard on over the last few years, to be a better provider to our customers, to be more involved with them. And to be honest, I can see what's happened as well is that retailers need more support. It's not just a retail system. So years ago, you would have went out, you would have popped in a POS system and off with them. Now you have to take into account who is the e-commerce provider, who's going to do payment integration, if you're going to have shipping integration, all of these elements, and sometimes there's other elements. You have to take all of that into account. Everybody has to be able to communicate with each other because it all works on a schedule and a timeline, and you have to have the right people in the place for a seamless migration to happen, or an installation, a brand new installation as well. So our approach now is to be involved with all of the entities, to get everyone on a call, to make sure that there's complete transparency and clarity. And if the customer or a third-party entity has any questions, then bring it up. But we agreed the timeline, the schedule, the task lists, who's doing what, when it's going to happen, and how it's going to happen. So this leads to a much better experience for the retailer at the end of the day, because you can't work in a standalone environment and think this isn't part of it. Everybody has to be involved and responsible for their own area.
Yeah, there is, and there's a lot of different cogs in that wheel, and I think you touched on that. There's a lot of there's a bigger thing going on, and I think some retailers that I work with, and some of them might be big and some of them might be small, and it goes back to that thing of seeing, well, how much can I get out of my POS system, and what can it do? And it's understanding that. But I think it goes back to what you said there. It's them really looking at, where is the time going in the business, and how long does it take me to do this? And it's great that you have, and from talking to yourself, Margaret, and the team, your team are quite personable. So when I hear you talk about any of your customers, you can clearly see there's a really good relationship built there, and there's a really good support system, which I think is really important, because it goes back to what we said earlier. We can, retailers especially can feel quite isolated in a store. They can feel that they're in those four walls, and they do find it hard to get outside of that remit, to go outside and to do what you said there, go into the likes of Retail Excellence, go into these other Leo enterprises, because they've just gotten so used to being in the trenches and doing it on their own. And I think it's trying to nearly mindset move out of that mentality a little bit. It's a lot harder to have that shift than what you might think. I suppose my next question is, and I'm very passionate about mentoring and coaching, and it's something that I see a huge difference in what it brought into my life and a lot of other people's lives. Do you see a lot of that happening at the moment? It was something that when I was in retail, I would have loved to have seen more of it. Do you see much of that happening at the moment in the space, or do you see a shift happening there?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It is changing,
brilliant.
definitely. You can even see now that yeah, there's a lot, like, people are taking into account visual merchandising as well, that they may not be the best person and they may need a little bit of help around it. But it's like I mentioned there at the start, your employees, that can be a job in its own, just to manage staff and to try and get them to where they need to be and all of that. And I think there's a lot of differences between the different generations as well, but to understand how to deal with the different generations, because when you came on board in 2000, you had a very different type of employee to what you have now. I think we actually talked about this, Louise. And I would see a lot of retailers struggling now with understanding how to deal with employees and how to retain them. And they are reaching out for help in understanding that aspect of it. That one in particular, I see, and they want to know how to be attractive to the quality people. Like, what's going to bring me in the best salespeople, or the best people to be working in the store. So yeah, I definitely see a big shift. I still feel it's coming back to retailers. The ones that know and have reached out are already excelling. You can see it in all the different platforms that they are really taken off. But then there's the other ones that are falling behind, and that gap is increasing all the time because they're not getting the guidance and advice. But what I will say is there is so much support. You should be reaching out to Louise or anyone in that area, or like I said, any of the organizations, and finding out what supports are there for you.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. You brought up that, and just to give a little bit of insight or context to the conversation that we had, to anyone that's watching or listening to this now, Margaret, was around that there is four generations in the workplace now, and there never was before. So, in the history, there's never been four generations. What we need to be aware of, and I talk to a lot of different, I work with a lot of different businesses around onboarding, retention, and engagement with their team, because it's all around connection. If we connect to customers or connect to our team, it's embedded really in that culture piece. And I think you touched on that already. And there's this perception at the moment that the Gen Z workforce coming in is, they don't really want to do the work. They're expecting everything. And I'm hearing a lot of this, I suppose, negative kind of a mindset around it. And I think what we need to realize is, Margaret, is that the workforce that we've coming in now, we need to adapt. I think a big thing that people don't realize is we have to adapt to it. And I think sometimes I find out of all industries I've mentored, coached, and supporting, retailers are this one of the probably a little bit more resistant to that change piece. To be quite honest, and I can say it honestly because I've been in it 15 years myself, and I still support people in it. And it comes back to that adapting thing and going, are we adapting our business to this new workforce coming in? If we're still doing what we were doing 2, 5, 6 years ago, and we're expecting to get a different result, we're not going to get a different result. We really have to change the way we're onboarding those new people. What are we offering them? So, is there well-being? Is there, I know some retailers are, they're offering their staff yoga classes to support their well-being.
Mhm.
And they actually do the yoga classes on site after hours in the building. They get a local girl to come in and do yoga classes. And again, the team feel they're being invested in, and they have the option to have yoga classes. So there's all of these great things, I think, that are some retailers are quite progressive in. So I would say to anyone listening today that, have you changed the workplace for your team or your new employees coming in the door? And if the answer is no, then have a think about how you could adapt to them. What are they asking? What are they looking for? I think is a great place to start, and seeing what you're doing at the moment and what resources you have within your remit to really kind of extend out on those. Is there anything around in your surrounding area? And I think we talked about the different resources with local enterprise boards, all of that. And a lot of them do free sometimes workshops, so you can get an insight into what they're actually offering before you sign them up, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There is a big shift in the workforce and what's happening. And you're right. I'm a millennial, so I am, and I probably, I'm a bit older, so over the hill anyways. But I can see, yeah, there's I think it's only a case really though of retailers reaching out and finding out, how do I attract the best people into my business, and how do I move the business forward? It's only by asking those questions and acting on it, finding out, can I go to a mentor? And if I go to a mentor, like, it's so many retailers don't understand the supports that are there. But if people listening to this can take one thing away from it, it's look at what's available to you. Reach out to Louise, have a look at this webinar that we're putting on the 24th of April. Get your information, and then you'll find what works for you. And that's going to help grow the business. And that's what you really want to do. You do not want to stay stagnant. You need to be doing things like that.
Yeah. So you're obviously in that, I suppose, that tech space, Margaret, something that I do not pretend to know anything about, because no, it's not me. I can do certain things, but the software stuff, it's a real skill in itself, Margaret. I suppose, where do you see the future of retailing going? Because I know I have lots of different conversations with different people, and we have this experiential retailing, and I've worked with different ones that it is creating a destination for the customer to come in and be really this whole idea of retailtainment. So we're entertaining the customer nearly like they're going to the opera when they come into the store, and there's all these great things that are happening. But from your perspective, I suppose you're coming in from a different side of things. You're, the operational aspect of the business. Where do you see the future going, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, look at omni-channel, which maybe there's some people don't fully understand what that is. That's where you have a bricks and mortar store and you have a web store as well. So look at omni-channel is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. You have to have that web presence, the hybrid approach that creates a seamless experience for customers, because with the store, people love coming in and they love trying on things. That's not going to change. But what you need to look at is the customer experience, because that's what keeps them coming back. If they have a great experience with you, and say they go online, they see something that you have in the store, they come in to have a look at it, try it on and then they might go away and think about it at 10 o'clock that night. Oh, I'm going to get it. That's it. It's it's that it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, what time it is, I can get what I want. And that very much is the new generation and what's happening. So look, at COVID caused huge innovation and evolution in retailers. It changed so fast. Many retailers did rise to the challenge, but the concern would be around ones that haven't. Um, you can see we're moving from a things economy to an experience economy. People want a good experience. If you go out for dinner now, you want it to be a wonderful experience. But if you go into a store, you want it to be a wonderful experience as well. So when I say business owners need to take a step back and look at the business, they should be all the time thinking about the customer. If I'm the customer walking in the door, what kind of experience is this for me? The bricks and mortars obviously have an advantage. They're not going anywhere. But it is that experience in the store that deciphers between a one-off or a loyal repeat customers. Another important thing that definitely is here is sustainability. And that's becoming a huge thing. You can see businesses like IKEA, they've said all plastic packaging is going to be gone by 2025. Consumers are a lot more aware of sustainability now as well. So you need to be figuring out, well, how can I bring this into the business? Because it is a customer pull as well. And so to cap it off, I think really omni-channel customer experience. And I'm going to point out one thing as well, right? Especially for the small to medium retailers. A lot of the time what they go on is their gut and what they like. And they buy in goods that they like in the store, right? But you can't do that. You need to be looking at your data and your information. It's about what the customer wants. It's funny, we have some wine stores, and I was talking to one of the guys, and he was saying, yeah, it's very funny. So it is, because sometimes you'll have couples coming in who are getting married, and they come in and they taste the wines and they pick what they like. And he said, you know, straight away, oh, this is not going to be a crowd pleaser at the wedding. So he said, you have to kind of subtly tell them, you know, there's certain wines here that are going to be crowd pleasers and everyone's going to enjoy at the wedding. It's not about your personal preference. So look, I think that's something that retailers maybe don't hear, and can be hard to hear. But look, there's no point in just fluffing it up and making it sound good. Like, I think transparency, truth, honesty, seeing what's happening is more important to relay that information.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it goes back to listening to what your customers want, not what you think they want, which I think is important. And I think sometimes because the owner, it could be a smaller retailer, they're working in the business, they can be very tied to that business, and very much, you know, embedded in everything that's brought in, that it is a personal taste thing. But the market is changing, and we need to see what those people coming in the door, are they looking for a product that I don't range? Okay, maybe I shouldn't look at range in that. What does my bestseller say? What's my space management saying? So much money am I lifting from these different ones? And really interesting on the windows one, Margaret, because I done a webinar there. I done a webinar with ISME, and with a lot of health stores around Ireland. And one thing that came up and I was quite surprised about was that a lot of the retailers on the call don't measure their turnover of their window. So they don't measure how much money those particular SKUs products have taken by being in a prime location, like the front window of their business. So it was very surprised by that, and it kind of got me thinking, you know, that's the window. When we look in the window of a house, that's the window of your, you know, even the front face of your website. It's a similar thing. So it brings traffic in, or it deters traffic coming in. So it was really interesting. And going back to what you said there, you know, is our windows commercial? Are we commercial business? Or is our business based around our likes and what we think looks nice? or what does that look like? And really interesting point you made there. I was smiling as you were saying it, because I could totally relate. And I've had those conversations where I've asked people to look at their sales and see, you know, where it's coming from and where the potentials are. And I think your business really helps in getting those reports. And there's one report that I was really blown away with, was the report where it supports a retailer in their purchase orders. So it nearly gives you a prompt in what you need to order next, which I think, wow, what a time saver for people that do replenishment orders or they've certain stock in, that the system nearly does that, which I think is fantastic, Margaret.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, at the end of the day, it comes back to your data and the information that you're building up in the system. There's a reason that you have a software system, and you need to trust that information more. So move away from that, I think, or what I like, and move to, well, what is going to appeal to the customers. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all tied in together, and it's reports. And looking at, actually, you asked me there at the start about what to look for in a system. Retailers, have a look at what reports you need as well, and what information you need out of the business to make good business decisions. That's definitely an important factor when you're looking at retail solutions.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you one last question, and then, because we've gone a little bit over, but what has been the one thing that's helped you in your career grow?
Okay, well, look, I personally, I think if you can work with people that you can grow with and you can learn from, it makes such a big difference. Like business owners, right? They often don't have people that they can learn from, right? They're the person that's expected to know all the information. What I found is, a couple of times in my life, people have come into my life that I work with. I work with a guy in Pro Strategy on his retail team, Dyra Rogers, and I have learned so much from him. So much on so many different elements. And he's probably been a big influencer in the growth of my career as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, so getting those mentors in place. Thanks so much, Margaret. It's been really, really interesting. Just to recap, because we talked about a lot of different areas. If you're a retailer and you're listening in, and you're thinking about an EPOS system, and you're feeling that you want to get more time in your business, I think that's really important. If you're looking for more time, does the current system you have in place, how long is it taking you to do the tasks you need? So writing down the time consuming tasks in your business, be it your purchase orders, be it your stock takes, how long is it taking you to do them? What is the issues you're having? What is it you're coming up against, the pain points in your business? What reports do you want to have? What are you measuring at the moment? What would you like to see more of? Ask yourself those questions, write them down in a notebook. And before you reach out to those people, reach out to Margaret and the team and have those questions in your head answered, so that you can really get that information you need to help you then figure out what system works best for you. And they have a great webinar. The webinar is on the 24th of April. What time and where can they get the link?
It is on the 24th at 1 o'clock.
The 26th, sorry, it's the 26th at 1 o'clock.
Sorry, it's
You're
on
okay.
the 26th at 1 o'clock.
Brilliant.
And it's available on LinkedIn, or if you want to email into us, you can email info@pss.ie and you'll get the link and the information for it.
Amazing. So check you out on LinkedIn or email, and it's also on your social media handles. So put that in the diary and you'll get something out of the webinar, if anything, an insight into an EPOS system. Also, maybe a couple of those questions that you have answered. So definitely want to reach out. Margaret and the team are really personable, and reach out and have a chat with them. Thanks so much for coming on, Margaret. I really appreciate your time today.
No, not at all. It's such a pleasure, Louise. It's always insightful talking to you and interacting with you. I would highly recommend you as somebody that retailers can reach out to. It's not forceful. It's very much about having a look at your business. You work very similar to how we work. And I think that's why we relate to each other so well. So look at, I think at the end of the day, we complement each other. And look, I hope this has helped your listeners.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks a million. We'll
All
talk
right,
to you soon.
cheers.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye bye.